Approaching marriage. I went to the studio to pick up our wedding photos. When I mentioned my wife, Liu Ruyan's name, the staff greeted me with a broad smile and enthusiastically brought out two sets of photos. In one of them, Liu Ruyan stood side by side with her junior, Ji Jie. Her face was filled with playful and tender smiles. The other set had a photo of me, but her expression was cold and indifferent. I took out my phone and happened to see the latest update from Ji Jie on his moments. President Liu said, "I look the best in a suit. Ha ha! So happy." The attached photo showed Liu Ruyan tilting her head back, carefully tying his tie for him. At that moment, a wave of exhaustion swept over me. Since they love each other so much, I wish them a lifetime of companionship. 5 years ago, I got into a car accident while saving Liu Ruyan and lost both my legs. Our wedding was hastily arranged and poorly done. We simply went to register our marriage, had a meal with both families, and that was the end of it. In the 5 years since our marriage, I begged Liu Ruyan countless times before she reluctantly agreed to take wedding photos with me. It had been my dream since childhood to see the woman I loved most wearing a beautiful, pristine wedding dress, standing in front of me saying, "I do." I would be the happiest person in the world. But I ignored Liu Ruyan's indifference and impatience, persistently pulling her into various poses, till her face grew more and more displeased. She has been like this since childhood, cold to others, proud in nature, with a temper that wasn't easy to handle. But in Gigi's set of wedding photos, Liu Ruyan's sweet, gentle smile was something I had never seen before. It turns out she wasn't cold to everyone. I just couldn't warm the heart of this ice-cold beauty. I took a taxi, intentionally having the driver take me to a scrapyard on the outskirts of the city. I threw my wedding photos, all of them without a second thought, into the trash. When I returned home, I dragged my inconvenient legs and struggled to hang our big family photo right in the center of the bedroom wall. It seems it was time for me to wake up from the dream I had for over 20 years. Liu Ruyan returned late at night. I didn't, as usual, get up and thoughtfully bring her a warm cup of milk. Instead, I stayed in the bedroom, locking myself in. Perhaps sensing something was wrong, she called me from the living room. "Huai Chuan, I brought you some late-night snacks." I put on my coat and slowly wheeled myself out. In that brief moment, I keenly noticed the disdain and disgust in her eyes as they swept over my legs. I couldn't help but bitterly smile inside. She had made her feelings so obvious, yet I had never noticed it before. I opened the takeaway box. Inside were cold stir-fried shrimp, braised crab, and spicy rabbit heads. The greasy, spicy smell hit me hard, making me feel nauseous. I nearly gagged from the smell. I quickly closed the lid again. Liu Ruyan looked at me, puzzled. "What's wrong? Isn't this the Sichuan dish you've been craving for so long? I specially bought it for you." I remained silent for a moment, then looked at her. I've never liked spicy food, Liu Ruyan. My taste is always very light. I only eat bland food. What I wanted to eat was suji. Guangwei. Liu Ruyan, who was changing into her sleepwear, paused. She smiled awkwardly for a moment. "Is that so? Maybe the names are too similar. I got it mixed up. Sorry. Huai Chuan. I'll take you there tomorrow, okay?" She rarely took the initiative to take me out. Maybe she felt embarrassed being with a crippled man. I can't walk easily with my prosthetic leg. She has to help me from time to time. She finds it troublesome. And there are always curious, judgmental looks directed at us. She doesn't like it. So, I haven't worn shorts since. Even in the scorching 40 degrees Celsius summer, I always wear long pants, covering my legs tightly, trying to keep people from seeing my abnormal legs. If it were before, if she had taken me out, I would have been very happy. But she's busy with work, other than sleeping. She doesn't spend much time at home. Throughout the year, the time she spends with me is scarce. So when she comes home from work at night, I always pull her into endless chatter, telling her about new restaurants I saw online. I'd also find new fun places. When we first got married, she would listen attentively. She even set aside a day every month to accompany me out. But in the past year or so, she's become increasingly impatient. Even when I just opened my mouth to speak, she would interrupt me with some other excuse. Huai Chuan, I've been working all day, I'm tired. Can you just let me rest for a bit? Is that okay? If you really want to go out, just go out on your own. I've already been putting money on your card every month. That should be enough for you to spend. It almost felt like she was saying, I've given you enough money, so stop bothering me. You stay at home all day, do nothing, and keep spending money. What more could you possibly want? Asterisk at the beginning, asterisk asterisk. I would seriously tell her, I just want you to spend more time with me when you're not around. I miss you so much, but the only response I received was silence and the sound of her breathing as she peacefully fell asleep. Later, I slowly started ignoring her, not speaking to her. She seemed even happier about that. She didn't notice my emotions at all. Eventually, I learned to comfort myself, using the excuse that she was too busy expanding the company, so she had no time for me to numb myself. Looking back now, I realize, asterisk, I was so foolish, asterisk. I ended up helping her bully myself. I clearly wasn't happy anymore. Why keep it all bottled up inside? Why can't I just let it out? I suddenly flipped over the 3 takeout boxes on the table. The bright red sauce splattered all over the floor. This action immediately froze Liu Ruyin for a couple of seconds. Then her expression shifted from surprise to anger. She spoke in a low voice. Shenhuai Chuan, what's wrong with you now? Is it really just because I bought the wrong food for you? And I already promised to go with you to eat sushi tomorrow. What more do you want? I suppressed the bitterness in my throat and smiled faintly. These dishes, were they really bought for me? If I hadn't seen Gigi's moments, I might have believed it. A few hours ago, he had just posted a 9-square grid. The photo showed not only these dishes, but also a huge bouquet of roses and 2 hands intertwined. In the corner of the photo, Liu Ruyin's wedding ring was especially glaring. Happy birthday to me. Thanks to the little princess for the flowers, and for flying all the way back from abroad to spend my birthday with me. What Liu Ruyin brought back was the leftover cold food from her and Gigi's meal. She only remembered that today was Gigi's birthday, but forgot that today was also the anniversary of our 3 years of marriage. She had been busy expanding her business abroad recently. I received a notice from her assistant that Liu Ruyin was returning to the country today. I was overjoyed and went to the studio to pick up our wedding photos. But reality struck me hard in the chest when she heard me say this. A flash of guilt crossed Liu Ruyin's face. Then she coldly said, "What do you mean by that? Shenhuai Chuan, stop being so paranoid every day." I remained silent. I gathered my pillow and blanket and moved them to the guest room. She chased after me and angrily scolded, "Quickly clean up the mess on the floor. What's this supposed to be? I really don't understand. Why have you changed like this?" When she saw the large wedding photo in the center of our bedroom, her voice suddenly stopped. For a long while, she quietly said, "Huai Chuan, are you really angry? DJ and I are not what you think. You know that. He has autism. It's hard for him to communicate with others, and he can't find a girlfriend. He only trusts me, so he can only ask me for help. He said his biggest wish in this life was to see himself getting married. I was just helping out as a friend and offered to be in the photos. You know how well I get along with him. It's all because of you." Liu Ruyin's relationship with Jie was indeed because of me. 8 years ago, I was still the most talented student at the music academy, and Jije was a junior under the same mentor. He had autism since childhood, so he rarely communicated with the outside world. He was always immersed in his own world, but unexpectedly, he showed his musical talent. Our mentor and classmates jokingly referred to us as the Music Academy's double heroes. Jije was 1 year younger than me. He had such a dignified appearance, yet he was always shy and seldom spoke. He simply called me Huai Chuanje, and I felt an overwhelming sense of pity for him. I almost treated him like my own younger brother. Not only did I take him to various competitions and performances, but I also took care of almost everything for him: his food, clothes, and lodging. Whenever I saw clothes or jackets that would suit him, I wouldn't hesitate to buy them and give them to him. When Liu Ruyan and I went to a restaurant and had something delicious, he'd always habitually bring him a portion too. Liu Ruyan would tease from the side, "I'm going to get jealous. You treat your junior better than you treat me, your girlfriend." Back then, we weren't married yet. I smiled and told her, "ZG is just too good. He's naive and doesn't know much about the world. Like a little fool. It's so endearing. I can't help but want to spoil him." I introduced Jije to Liu Ruyan. His panicked eyes, like a little kitten hiding behind me. Back then, I patted his head and reassured him, "You'll have a sister now too." The irony is, I invited Evolve into my home and didn't even realize it. It turns out I was the biggest fool of all. I vented my anger, and for the first time in ages, had a good night's sleep. The next day, when Liu Ruyan called me to get up, it was already nearing noon. Maybe because she felt guilty, the living room had already been cleaned, and she'd even sprayed some air freshener to make it smell nice. The spicy and numbing taste of last night's food seemed to have faded into nothing. The air was now filled with the cool scent of cedarwood. This fragrance was familiar to me. It was one I had personally chosen and given to him. Gigi's favorite cool, woody scent. But in that moment, my good mood vanished. I pulled out my favorite white shorts from the wardrobe. They were from 2 years ago, but I had never worn them, because Liu Ruyan didn't like me wearing clothes that exposed my useless legs. Now, I put them on, walked up to the mirror, and looked at the prosthetic legs. My heart still ached with a faint sting. Liu Ruyan stepped forward and draped her arm around my shoulder. She softly tried to comfort me. I twisted my body slightly and lightly avoided her, ignoring her awkwardly hanging hand in the air. I simply said, "Let's go." Liu Ruyan drove. I sat in the passenger seat. It had probably been half a year since I last rode in her car. The strong, independent woman that she was didn't like any clutter. The car was always neat and organized, but now it had been decorated into a strange new look. There was a little plush ball hanging under the rearview mirror, and a cute rabbit-shaped neck pillow. I remembered. It was Gigi's zodiac sign. I let out a self-mocking laugh. He really was as endearing as a rabbit. Unlike me, who had been tormented by broken legs and a failing marriage, leaving me unrecognizable. Halfway through the drive, Liu Ruyan's phone rang, breaking the silence that had lasted the whole trip. "Little rabbit, be good. Turn on the hazard lights." My heart felt like it had been stabbed with a needle. The pain was fine and dense. Liu Ruyan hurriedly explained to me that it was Jije who insisted on having me set that ringtone for him. I pretended to be indifferent and nodded. She pulled over to the side of the road. As soon as the call connected, Gigi's playful voice came through. "Brother Huai Chuan." The corner of Liu Ruyan's mouth lifted reflexively into a smile filled with indulgence. But suddenly, as if realizing something, she glanced at me and hurriedly lowered the volume. She opened the car door and got out. I saw her relaxed brows suddenly furrow, and she said, "I'll be right there." She quickly walked to the passenger side, opened the door, Huai Chuan, something came up at the company. You take a cab back first. Or should I call a driver to pick you up? I smiled and gently declined her hand reaching to help me. I slowly maneuvered the prosthetic legs myself. It's fine. You go ahead. I know. Jije is your assistant now. He must have called you about something work-related. Liu Ruyan's words were left unspoken. Only one sentence came out. Sorry. Then she hurriedly left. I stood on the busy street corner, feeling like my heart was barren and empty. She had left me on the main road, with greenery on both sides. I struggled to control my prosthetic leg, slowly moving forward, looking for an escape on this busy road. Liu Ruyan couldn't even spare a second on me to find a safe spot to drop me off. Whenever it was Gigi's call, she would rush to answer it immediately. My heart felt like it was being tightly clenched by a large hand. The pain was excruciating. As I walked, my thigh began to ache too. Sweat formed on my forehead, and my arms started to lose their coordination. When I first lost my legs, the days of rehabilitation flooded my mind once again. Those months, I lived through hell. My legs were also lost because of Liu Ruyan. The Shen and Liu families were family friends. The two families had arranged a betrothal for us since childhood. I knew from a young age that I would marry Liu Ruyan, so I rejected all the advances from other girls. Liu Ruyan, too, made sure to keep her distance from other boys. Unlike other rich young ladies, Liu Ruyan had always been into extreme sports. Downhill racing, street racing, skydiving, bungee jumping, surfing. While I preferred quietness, from an early age I showed a high talent for music. At 18, I scored full marks and entered the piano department at the conservatory. My mentor had high hopes for me. I always believed that I would walk farther along the path of music and eventually hold a solo concert in one of the world's top opera houses. But that dream shattered 5 years ago. Back then, I was 22 years old. Liu Ruyan, regardless of my nervousness or fear, insisted on taking me to race. She said she had already made plans with her friends. Everyone brought their own partner. Huai Chuan, I've already agreed. If you don't go, I'll be embarrassed. Liu Ruyan said this. I looked at her delicate, beautiful face and her hopeful eyes. I couldn't bear to disappoint her. In the end, on the mountain road, when we turned the bend, we had an accident. I sacrificed my legs to save her. To hear that news, Liu's father rushed back from abroad, ignoring her injured arm. He pulled her off the hospital bed, nearly breaking her legs. He said he was going to make this unfilial daughter atone to me. Liu Ruyan gritted her teeth, never uttering a sound of pain. She just kept apologizing to me, saying she was sorry, and that she would take care of me for the rest of her life. She would be my legs. Wherever I wanted to go, she would go. I cried, feeling heartbroken. I pleaded with Liu's father. In the following years, she really did take care of me well. Every time I did rehabilitation training, she would be there with me. In the beginning, I couldn't accept the pain of losing my legs. I also resented Liu Ruyan. At times when emotions took over, I would even snap at her. In the beginning, she took all my frustration and responded with painstaking care. When I fell, she would patiently help me up again and again, massaging my residual limbs, relieving the muscles, and then encouraging me over and over. I thought about suicide, but seeing Liu Ruyan's determined face, I chose to face it instead. I didn't want to disappoint the people I loved or the people who loved me. But in the end, I could no longer muster the confidence to stand on the piano stage. When I handed in my request for academic leave, my heart shattered for the second time. I was completely hollow inside. There was no hope left. I lost my life and my dreams. In the following years, sometimes I would go mad. Other times, I stayed quiet. During that time, Gigi would visit me regularly. Liu Ruyan's gaze toward him went from indifference to gradually becoming full of affection. I once questioned her. She casually said, "Gigi is your brother, so he's also my brother." Seeing him play the piano made me think of you sitting at the piano. Liu Ruyan was completely immersed in Gigi's music. Her words were like a sharp blade stabbing into my heart. She completely ignored the pale expression on my face. She forgot that I could never sit at the piano in a concert hall again. The admiration that once filled her eyes for me, now all of it was directed at Gigi. I grabbed the cup on the table and threw it at them. "Get out of here." Memories surged like a tidal wave. My thoughts became increasingly heavy. I could no longer bear the weight. The scorching noon sun beat down on me. A dizzying light flashed in front of my eyes. Amidst the loud ringing in my ears and the blaring of car horns, I fainted. When I woke up, I was lying in a hospital bed. Next to me was a young, unfamiliar woman. When she saw me open my eyes, she hurriedly handed me a glass of warm water. "You're awake? The doctor said you have some serious health issues. You're in the mid-stage of stomach cancer. Plus, you've been anemic from not eating. You were very weak and fainted on the road." She furrowed her brows, slightly reproaching me. "Where's your family? Given your condition, and with you missing for so long, not a single person called to check on you? Your phone was locked. I couldn't contact your family. I paid for your treatment myself and stayed to take care of you. You collapsed right in front of my car, and your legs aren't in good shape either. I was really scared. I thought you were faking it." Her voice was a mix of nagging and concern. It made me feel a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Even a stranger like her cared about my health. I opened my phone. There were no calls or messages. Just as he said, for several hours, Liu Ruyan hadn't contacted me at all. She didn't ask how I was getting home. She didn't care if a disabled person like me would be safe on the road. It felt as though my heart had become numb with pain, and in that moment, it completely died. I smiled faintly at the woman. "My name is Shen Weikuan. Thank you for saving me. Let me know how much I owe you." She waved her hand. "No need to be polite. Just call me Suzy. The most important thing now is to find your family." She waved again. She helped me get out of bed. When we walked to the hall, I unexpectedly saw Liu Ruyan and Gigi. She was half kneeling on the floor, carefully holding Gigi's hand while applying medicine. My hand clenched suddenly, then began to tremble slightly. Feeling the pressure in my hand, Suzy looked up, following my gaze in surprise. "Do you know them?" I sneered. "Didn't you ask about my family?" "Here, they're right here." Sensing their gaze, the two of them turned to look at us. A flash of guilt crossed Liu Ruyan's eyes, but she quickly regained her usual cold demeanor. She walked towards me, neither fast nor slow. After a brief hesitation, she began to explain. "When we were in the office earlier, Gigi accidentally broke the cup. He hurt his hand. I brought him to the hospital to get it checked. I looked at Gigi's wound, and there wasn't even any blood. It is indeed quite serious. If you had waited a little longer, it probably would have healed by now. So because of this, you just left me, a disabled person, in the middle of the street?" Tears filled Gigi's eyes in an instant. "Why, Chuan-jae, please don't misunderstand. I really had an urgent matter with President Liu at the company." Liu Ruyan furrowed her brows. She suddenly slapped my hand away from Gigi's. "What are you going to fix your suspicious nature? Gigi was just making coffee for me during the meeting. He hurt his hand then. His hands are for playing the piano. They're delicate. Naturally, I had to go to the hospital to make sure everything was fine, so I could feel more at ease." The spot where she had slapped me earlier suddenly flared up with a pain like 1,000 needles. She seemed to have forgotten my hands are also for playing the piano. And it was because I was saving her that I got hurt. But you weren't at home or at the restaurant. How did you end up here? She glanced sideways at Suzy. Who is this woman? Why are you with her? The frustration in my heart grew stronger. I raised my hand and shoved Liu Ruyan away. How dare you ask me? How could I go home? How could I go to the restaurant? Am I supposed to crawl over with these broken legs? If it weren't for someone's kindness, saving me when I fainted on the street, I wouldn't have had to see you and Jije like this, all lovey. Jije came over and tugged at my sleeve, quietly trying to explain. Huai Chuan Jie. I'm not with President Liu like you think. You've misunderstood. Liu Ruyan pushed me away, shielding Jije behind her. Didn't you say you wanted me to treat Jije like a little brother? Why are you getting jealous now? I lost my balance and nearly fell. The tension in my mind snapped entirely, and my body felt like it was plunging into an abyss. Suzy helped steady me from the side. Unable to watch any longer, she spoke up. You're his wife, aren't you? She looked at Liu Ruyan with disdain, glancing her up and down. TCH. Although I don't know what kind of relationship the three of you have, but no matter what, leaving your husband, who has stomach cancer and is disabled alone in the middle of the street, while you go off to take care of a young, healthy guy. TCH. With this kind of injury, even with my 50th vision, I can barely see it. I was just about to stop Suzy from mentioning my illness, but to my surprise, Liu Ruyan found out anyway. Jije awkwardly hid his hands behind his back, the hostility in his eyes flashing for a brief moment. Liu Ruyan froze. Then shocked, she rushed over to hug me. Huai Chuan. You're sick. What happened? Is it serious? Why does it matter to you how serious it is? With every ounce of strength, I pushed her away, shouting hoarsely, get lost. If Jije matters more to you, then let's get a divorce. I'll step aside for you too. Liu Ruyan stood there, flustered, coming over to pull me. Huai Chuan. I'm just following your words, taking care of Jije. You need to focus on your health now, okay? We won't fight anymore, I promise. The phantom limb pain, which had been dormant for so long, hit me all at once. The excruciating pain from my severed legs was like a sharp, bone-piercing ache. It was the same pain I felt that day, crushed beneath the car, my flesh torn and mangled. I gritted my teeth, my body trembling uncontrollably. Over there, Jije was also clutching his chest, gasping softly. President Liu, my heart hurts so much. Liu Ruyan hesitated for a moment, but finally let go of me. Going to support Jije. I'm sorry. Huai Chuan. I'll go to the car and get the medicine for ZG. Wait for me. Once I get the medicine, I'll take you home. But you didn't wait for me. Liu Ruyan ran off, leaving behind only a figure full of worrying and panic. Liu Ruyan, how many times have I waited for you? On my birthday, Jije called, and you told me to wait. On our wedding anniversary, you went to be with Jije, and told me to wait again. Whenever Jije called, you would leave me alone on the street. I waited and waited, but never once did you return to me. I will never wait for you again. I scoffed softly and said to Jije, I never knew that autism could cause chest pains like this. Jije hesitated and spoke. A few years ago, after graduation, the pressure was too much. I ended up developing depression. I nodded. You really have a lot of mental health issues. It's really tough on you. I turned and left the hospital. Suzy spoke up for me. Brother Waikuen, people like this. It's better to get a divorce sooner rather than later. I let go of her. Thank you. Suyi, I'll take a taxi home on my own. No need to trouble you. Suzy was reluctant. My mom said, we should be kind-hearted and help others. Although I can't do much. It's too inconvenient for you to take a taxi. She tilted her head, her face lighting up with a bright smile. Brother Waikuin, don't be polite. Just let me take you home. I couldn't argue anymore, so I nodded. In agreement. The car drove down the road. My tears couldn't be held back any longer. One by one, they fell quickly. I don't understand, my beloved Junior. My cherished wife. Why did they both choose to betray me together? I still vividly remember the vows Liu Ruyan made when we got married. She said she would be my legs. She said we would be together forever. I thought, even though I lost my legs, lost my dream of playing the piano, at least I still had a wife who loved me. And a Junior, whom I considered family, who would carry on my dreams. I remember when I first submitted my request to take a break from school. I gave Jige a few of the rare piano scores I had collected. I also gave him a book of piano music I composed myself, and taught him my fingering techniques and practice methods. His talent was second only to mine. I placed my final dream in his hands. I remember that moment, his eyes filled with tears. He grasped my hand. Waikuin, if one day I can stand on the stage for a solo performance, the tickets for the concert, I'll make sure you're the first one to get one, and you'll sit right in the middle, the closest seat, watching with your own eyes as I fulfill our dream. A wave of despair crashed over me. My nostrils burned. I awkwardly turned my head to the side, trying hard not to let anyone see how miserable I looked. Suzy fumbled for a tissue while trying to control the steering wheel. Her hands were in a frenzy. She comforted me while driving. From time to time, she would glance at me with concern. Waikuin, if you want to cry, just let it out. Holding it in isn't good for your health. When we got out of the car, I added her contact information. I forced a smile. Thanks for today. If there's a chance in the future, I'll treat you to a meal. Her face flushed. I sighed quietly in my heart. I understood the faint emotions in her eyes. Young people like her perhaps don't understand what it means to have a partner like me, someone with a disability. I really didn't want to be too entangled with her, but I also didn't want to owe anyone anything. This feeling, I could never give her a response. When I got home, I dialed my mentor's number. Professor Liu, I've made up my mind. The spot you mentioned for studying abroad at the Music Academy, is it still available? Professor Liu's voice came through with surprise. Today is the last day to apply. I'll send your details over immediately. That's great. You've finally moved on. The professor had always advised me that I could still play the piano with my hands. Losing my legs wouldn't change much. As long as I adjusted my mindset, I could still stand on the world stage again. It was just that I couldn't get over this mental barrier. I felt like I couldn't stand out with the grace of a swan. If that's the case, I'd rather be an ugly duckling, hiding away in the swamp. But now, I understand. No one can replace me. To achieve my own dreams, in the end, I will still have to rely on my own hands. When Liu Ruyan came back, it was already deep into the night. She slipped into my bed and gently wrapped her arms around me from behind. But there was a faint scent of cedar wood in the air. My body instantly stiffened. I shifted to the side, escaping from her embrace. Liu Ruyan let out a barely audible sigh. Waikuin, you're still angry with me. Seeing that I didn't respond, she patiently explained. Before, I didn't think much of ZG. You even blamed me for treating him badly. We argued about it. But you've forgotten that time after your accident. You didn't return to school for a while, and then you applied for a leave of absence. ZG suffered every day at school. He wanted nothing more than to stay in the hospital all the time. It was then, because of what happened with you, it made his autism even worse. He couldn't communicate with anyone but you. Well, only I could speak to him a little. And you kept asking me to take care of him. Up until now, I've truly come to see him as my little brother. I swear, there's absolutely nothing personal between him and me. So, if now his autism is worse, and he's even developed depression, it's all my fault, right? But now he's able to work as an assistant at Liu Ruyan's company, and even attends various dinners and business gatherings with her. Where do you see any signs of illness? I replied coldly. What feelings he has for you? Only you know the truth. As for those people in your company, who do they think is your husband? You should know that better than anyone. Even your business partners, they probably don't know that you have a disabled husband. Liu Ruyan rarely lowered herself like this with me. My words were sharp and bitter. She couldn't maintain her composure. Her face instantly fell. Enough! I'm doing this for your own good, so you can rest at home and focus on healing your legs. I have some good news to share with you today. ZG injured his hand, so he can't play the piano right now, but he has a solo concert this weekend at the City Concert Hall. ZG said, your biggest wish in life was to hold a concert, but it seems like that opportunity is gone, so he wants to give you that chance. I looked at her in disbelief. Liu Ruyan, you actually used our money to organize a solo concert for JJ? Liu Ruyan frowned. That money was all earned by me. Besides, if this small amount of money can fulfill both your and ZG's dreams, it's worth it. I laughed in anger. I asked her, and what about JJ? How does he plan to give me the opportunity? Liu Ruyan looked at me. ZG said, he'll prepare an identical piano backstage for you, while ZG plays in front, pretending to perform. But the sound that comes through the speakers will be the sound of you playing the piano. It felt like something inside my mind, asterisk, and shattered in that instant. I turned around and pushed her away with all my strength. I screamed hysterically. Liu Ruyan, you and JJ truly disgust me. You actually want me to cooperate with JJ and pretending to play the piano? You're not only insulting me, you're insulting music itself. I could never do such a thing. Her expression was serious. For a moment, I didn't even know if she truly felt this way, or if she was just trying to humiliate me. JJ's hand injury will heal in 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days. It won't affect the concert at all. The request he made was clearly an opportunity to humiliate me. He wanted me to know that he is the pianist under the spotlight, and I'm just a clown hiding in the corner playing his stand-in. Liu Ruyan grew a little impatient. The tickets are already sold. JJ's title as the Genius Musical Prince has already been established, and the concert sponsor is Su Group. If you don't help now, won't it be embarrassing for both the Su family and JJ? I felt a sense of injustice inside me. I took a deep breath. Liu Ruyan, let's get a divorce. I stood up and pulled out the divorce agreement I had drafted earlier that evening. My section was already signed. Take a look at the terms in the agreement. If there's no problem, then let's sign it now. She suddenly snatched the agreement from my hands and tore it into pieces. With gritted teeth, she squeezed out, Shen Weikoen, do you really want to get a divorce? I won't allow it. I coldly smiled. It's fine if you tear it. The digital version can be printed as many copies as you want. Earlier, didn't you want me to help JJ? It's not impossible. As long as you sign this agreement, then I'll agree. I watched the light in Liu Ruyan's eyes slowly fade, till she collapsed to the ground, utterly drained. I smiled with pleasure. Liu Ruyan, JJ, you can both wait for the big gift I'm sending you. The concert proceeded as scheduled. Once I was the one standing on the stage, but now I could only hide in a corner backstage, playing the role of someone else's substitute. Liu Ruyan had already sent me the program and the exact time schedule, down to the second. She had also set up a large screen in front of the piano to live stream GG's every move. He started playing, so I played. When he stopped, GG truly had talent. His musical style and fingering techniques were about 70 to 80% like mine. Even in the program he announced for his solo concert, there were a few pieces that I had composed. I smiled, deliberately playing to fast, then to slow, watching him on the screen, looking flustered but still trying to keep calm. It was so ridiculous. I intentionally played a wrong note, but only someone like me with perfect pitch could tell. GG had no idea how many traps I had set for him in the music. In the 10 pieces, I had played over 100 wrong notes, scattered in every nook and cranny. When the performance ended, GG stood up gracefully, receiving thunderous applause from the audience. He smiled elegantly, holding Liu Ruyan's hand. He said a few words of thanks. The two of them stood there like a perfect couple, a golden boy and jade girl. The next day, the news of the 26-year-old genius musician GG's solo concert success went viral on the trending topics. Liu Ruyan was busy handling the media. She didn't have time to care about me. At that moment, I had already moved all my things out, leaving behind the divorce agreement. I went back to my parents' house. I lay on the sofa, eating fruit, while scrolling through the news. GG really is so lucky. He's good looking and so talented. The key thing is, he has a girlfriend who loves him. I heard his girlfriend is the organizer of this concert, the president of Su Group, a genius music prince plus a beautiful, strong CEO. What kind of fairy tale is this? Besides the endless admiration from the netizens, 3 of the pieces GG played yesterday also made it to the top 10 on a popular music app. The more I looked, the happier I became. Keep hyping it up. Let's make the buzz even bigger. The higher you stand, the harder you fall. Through their happy, smiling photo together, I seemed to see the moment they would fall from their pedestal. The tragic scene of everyone turning against them. Mom looked at me with worrying. Why, Quinn? Are you really okay? Ruyan, she shook my head. I smiled faintly to reassure her. I've already decided to divorce her. What she does with other men, it's no longer any of my business. Though Mom was heartbroken for me, she respected my decision. She knew I might have suffered in the Liu family, but she didn't ask more. I simply didn't have the energy to explain it all over again. I was deeply grateful for Mom's consideration. By the way, Mom, there's something else. I've already promised my professor that I will go abroad to further my studies. I want to pick up my music dream again. Mom was both shocked and delighted. She hugged me tightly, tears falling from her eyes. That's wonderful. Why, Quinn? I've always thought that when you're standing on the music stage, that's when you're at your most handsome and confident. I felt a pang of bitterness as I replied, Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for making you and Dad worrying. This time, I'll definitely follow my dreams and path. Nothing will stop me anymore. In the end, to take care of my legs, Mom decided to accompany me abroad, while Dad stayed in the country to handle my divorce matters, and also to take care of some business issues between the Shen and Liu families. Before all this, I still informed my family about my condition. My entire family accompanied me to the hospital for treatment, and the collapse of GJ and the Su Corporation came faster than I had expected. Perhaps it was because the hype had been built up to enthusiastic fans who recommended GG to some renowned pianists. GG's music was surprisingly heard by a few music maestros. It said that at first, they were somewhat incredulous, but after listening to it a few times, they began picking it apart. Out of 10 pieces, Gigi had actually played over 100 wrong notes. They had watched a video of Gigi playing live, and in it, each key was pressed in the correct position. When this news broke, it caused a storm. It quickly stirred up online heat, even surpassing the initial hype. About Gigi as a genius musician, the online buzz was much louder than before. Enthusiastic and gossipy netizens dug deeper into this direction, uncovering not only Gigi's fake performances, but also revealing several of his so-called original compositions. They were all pieces I had once performed in public. This confirmed the reputation of the genius fraud musician. Even the Su family had a lot of dark secrets dug up, and Su Corporation's CEO, Liu Ryan, was found to be in a relationship with Gigi, despite being married and having a husband. In an instant, the internet was filled with curses and criticisms. Su Corporation's stock plummeted, the foundation was shaking, and the building was about to collapse. I successfully completed my treatment and went abroad to enroll in school. Thanks to my excellent finger technique and unique insights into music, I earned the recognition of my new mentor. She is an outstanding and gentle foreign woman. Not only did she not discriminate against my legs, but she even shared the struggles she had faced in the past and offered me a lot of encouragement. The next time I saw you, Ryan, was downstairs from my apartment abroad. I don't know how she found out my address, but when I was returning from school, I happened to run into her. She no longer looked as handsome and poised as before. She had aged and looked quite haggard. Even her hair had streaks of white. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her dark circles had nearly reached her jaw. She used to be the one most obsessed with appearances. Every time she went out, she made sure to look perfect. I had never seen her in such a miserable state. But now, seeing her, aside from being a little surprised, I felt no waves in my heart. As soon as she saw me, she rushed toward me immediately. Her steps were so hurried that she tripped over a stone on the ground. She almost fell. With reddened eyes and a tearful voice, she called out to me, "Wai-Kuen, you really don't want me anymore?" I gave a cold smile. "Liu Ryan, between us, it was you who abandoned this relationship first. Now, what's the point of showing me this pitiful act? Do you think I'm moved when I see your fake sympathy?" It seemed like she had been triggered by something, like some kind of self-inflicted punishment. She slapped herself hard several times. "I'm sorry, Wai-Kuen. I ruined our home." My tone was calm without a trace of emotion. "Liu Ryan, what's the point of saying this now? What's the use? Just go. Don't come looking for me again. Don't interfere with my life anymore." She trembled as she reached out to help me, but when she saw me step back, she finally lowered her head and gave up on touching me. "Don't misunderstand. I'm not here to cling to you. I just wanted to see if you're doing well now." She lifted her face, revealing a smile that was uglier than crying. "Seeing you walking further and further down the path of your dreams, I'm proud of you. I know I no longer have the right to ask you to stay. I hope that, from now on, you will find your own happiness. You don't need to worry about me, Huaikuin's happiness. I will take care of it from now on." Suzy appeared from around the corner, announcing her claim, and wrapping her arm around mine. Liu Ryan's face instantly drained of color. She swayed visibly, almost falling. She stared at us for a while, muttering, "It's you ... You're the person from that day ... Suzy smiled brightly, extending her hand. "Hello, I'm Suzy, Huaikuin's current girlfriend." Liu Ryan never shook her hand. Instead, she left, lost and defeated. After she was gone, I pretended to pinch Suzy's cheek. "Stop talking nonsense. I haven't agreed to be your boyfriend yet." After arriving at the music academy, I unexpectedly ran into Suzy. It turned out that she was studying at the same university as me. However, She was majoring in composition. I've actually seen you before, she said, looking at me, her eyes sparkling. At the freshman ceremony when I first enrolled in college, you were the one performing that beautiful piano piece. And your graceful posture, they left a lasting impression on me. But not long after, I heard from my mentor that you had taken a leave of absence. I asked that old man why, but he wouldn't tell me the reason. I gave a wry smile. I gave a wry smile again, because back then my own inferiority and fear. I had asked my mentor not to let the schoolmates know about my legs being gone. Later that day, when you collapsed in front of my car, I realized you had endured such a huge setback in life. But luckily, you got back up. She looked at me encouragingly, her eyes filled with unspoken tenderness. If it hadn't been for my old man suddenly calling me back home, I might have missed you for this lifetime. I was pulled back from my memories, and what appeared in front of me was still Suji's iconic smile. Although you're not my boyfriend yet, I'm confident that you will be. One day, I couldn't help but smile too. Liu Ryan was left behind in my past, no longer able to occupy even a fraction of my heart. Perhaps I was about to embrace a whole new life. Not long after, my mother told me the final outcome of Liu Ryan and GJ. It said that after the fake performance scandal, GJ was branded by netizens as the shame of the music industry. Since then, he seemed to have truly developed depression, occasionally losing control and going into violent rages, even becoming aggressive, hurting and biting people. And the Liu family also fell into decline. Although they didn't go bankrupt, they were on the verge of collapse. Liu Ryan was removed from the Liu family's lineage and kicked out of Su Corporation. GJ also revealed online that it was I who had pretended to play for him, but by doing so, he directly admitted the truth of his fake performance. So his attempts to drag me into the conflict were drowned out by the flood of criticism from netizens. No one believed anything he said anymore. In fact, it only boosted my popularity. Even GJ repeatedly threatened Liu Ryan with a knife, demanding that she produce a recording from backstage, where I had supposedly played the piano, and issue a statement in the name of Su Corporation to speak on his behalf. But the truth of his fake performance and downfall was already undeniable. All of this was nothing more than an attempt to drag me down with him. But surprisingly, Liu Ryan didn't listen to him. She insisted that it was GJ who had bribed the staff of the concert to stage the fake performance. She had no idea. Su Corporation was also a victim. In the end, they ended up in a vicious dogfight, which was just as I expected. After all, it touched their most core interests. How long could their true love really last? In the end, my mother told me Liu Ryan is dead. I heard it was because she refused to smear my name. GJ completely lost his mind during one of his episodes. He stabbed Liu Ryan through the chest with a knife. Actually, at that moment, Liu Ryan could have been saved, but she had lost everything. Power, status, her lover. She had no will to survive. She eventually died on the operating table. When my mom said this, although she hated what Liu Ryan had done, she was a kind-hearted person and couldn't help but sigh. This child, Ryan, I watched her grow up. How did she end up like this? Yeah, how did she end up like this? I thought things would be stable, that we would grow old together, from childhood to old age. Now, how did it come to this? I smiled slightly. Maybe she had always been this way. She just hid it well before. I picked up my phone and saw a message from Suzy. Waiko and Jay, come out and play. I found a milk tea place in Central Street that's amazing. I heard it's a chain from China. I waited 2 hours in line to get it. I'll come pick you up now. I replied with one word. Okay, there's no obstacle you can't overcome. Now, I have dreams. I have my family by my side, and there's someone who loves me waiting for me. The sails have passed, and the sea is vast and endless. The end of the story.